Chris Baumann, we'll start with you, Chris. Exactly.
Is this on?
Chris is like, why me?
Why me? Always me.
Now, we thought we would, I was just curious, but so you guys know Chris. Chris and I are good friends, Baumann. I think you know most everyone up on the stage. We'll go through everyone, make sure everyone is introduced. Chris Baumann with Common Ground. Where have we seen rents, Chris? Let's just start real quick. I know this is how we built the business, but what was the highest rent price that you guys had seen go off the books this last year?
620,
620. Where was it at?
Fulton County, Illinois.
Okay. I know some ground up in northern Missouri went for over 450, which was crazy to me. And
Well, the 620 was kind of a flyer. I think two guys just got a little emotional. I don't think that's the norm. I mean, we're seeing Class A soils anywhere from 475 to 5 1/4 is pretty typical. And I think you get into that B soil, 120 PI timber soils around 3 1/4 to 400. So, I mean, we're still seeing strong rents, even given the, dip in commodities. So,
yeah, what do you think of that? You think, where do we go?
Well, everybody always asks me that. I'm not a commodity guy, but, obviously things aren't, they're real soft right now. But it's surprising to still see strong rents in this environment, and people are still very, very aggressive and gaining more ground. And I know there was an auction in Iowa that went for 520, and there was a lot of buzz about it, like how can they make money? And, that's the age-old question.
And so everyone knows Chris is like us. He had an HVAC business. Do you still have the HVAC, or did you sell the?
I'm a partial owner still, minority.
That's what I thought. So yep. Chris has a farm, had grew a big HVAC business, sold it off. My question, I guess, is what's it like going from owning an HVAC business, because my dad, he was a sheet metal guy, and so, to trying to build out a tech company. How's the cultural dynamics with you and your farm friends? And then I know you got a lot of young tech guys from California and New York on your team.
Well, the HVAC business, I would equate it to kind of building a house. It's been around forever. There's a blueprint. It's basically customer service. It's emergency-based. If you're hot or cold, you're going to call somebody. So growing an HVAC business, it's good labor, good customer service, and growing it all comes down to marketing dollars. And, you go to our, Facebook page or our Google ads, like you got 1,300 five-star reviews. Somebody Googles you, they're coming to you first. So really growing an HVAC company is pretty straightforward. I always tell everybody the business is very hot and cold. And one interesting fact about HVAC, when I got into it, I didn't know anything about HVAC. I just decided to buy an HVAC business. You would think people would go, I'll take a poll. What would you rather go without, heat or air? Raise your hand. Heat, would you rather go without heat? Raise your hand.
Yeah. No.
Would you rather go without air conditioning? Raise your hand. Okay, it's the exact opposite. So people will go without heat for like 2 or 3 weeks. Seriously. Like they'll go buy space heaters, they'll open an oven. It's crazy. They won't go 1 day without air conditioning. Do you want to know why that is?
Yeah.
Women can't put their makeup on if they're sweating. And that's the God's honest truth.
That's the biggest one you hear.
That's the biggest one we get. It's not the husband calling, it's the wife calling saying, I'm sweating, get somebody out here now. But in that sense, HVAC's very simple. You're solving a very immediate emergency-based problem. When I got into this business, that's not the case. We're changing an industry. It's like you said, we're a disruptor. When you go into something like this where you're changing the landscape of land and how land is leased and rented, it's not how I built this ag business, it's how I build with a D. And we started out as cash rent, now we're Common Ground, because once you start doing ag leasing, then you get into hunting leasing and then pasture leasing. And all we're trying to do is build value for both the landowner and the farmers. And now this year, it's led us on this journey of listening to our customer base and our farmers. And oddly enough, the farming community is amongst our largest investors. Most of our investors in the software are farmers. And when we sit down and we listen to them, what is a big pain point for you guys? Well, when you're signing a lease in November, December, and you don't know what the price of that commodity, corn or beans, is going to be come fall harvest. Like, that's a pain point. You're gambling. And through that listening over the last couple of years, you know, we've evolved in Common Ground, and now we've got Common Ground Insurance Group, and that's, you know, we've had several people stop by the booth and ask, what's the CLIP? Well, the CLIP is a brand new insurance product that we created over the last year for cash lease insurance protection, where you can actually, we've developed an insurance product. It's a private product. It's not federal, and you can buy that and buy insurance on your actual rental payments and pick your price, set your floor, and I think it's going to revolutionize the industry. So it's not how I built this ag business. It's how we build the ag business, and it's continually changing. It's driving value for farmers, landowners, everybody involved in the equation. It's much more difficult than the HVAC company, but it's a hell of a lot more fun.
Is it easier to hire in this business or the HVAC business? Because we have a lack of blue collar.
It's impossible to hire in the HVAC business.
I'm serious, because
it's
there's a lack
impossible.
of blue collar kids.
I mean, our company does $5 to $6 million a year every single year. If I could double our staff, we'd do $10 million.
Yeah.
But you can't. Anybody you hire in and cycle through, they're gone in 2 months. And you'll get a young kid that's really, really eager to come to work and want to learn, and then you got to fire him 3 weeks later because he can't stay off his phone. It's just labor is going to be the biggest pain point for a lot of industries. Yeah. And the other thing that's a struggle is you've got, with that labor shortage, is driving up the cost of your current employees because they realize how valuable they are.
Right.
So, and it just gets passed down to the consumer, unfortunately.
Yeah, we're seeing that in a lot of space. And I know there's a lot of my friends in the audience and people that report, you know, they own excavating companies or construction companies and have bought ground through the years and have amassed fairly sizable farms. And we've all been talking. It's tough to find.
Well, and at least in the HVAC industry, AI is starting to impact it as well. And the furnaces kind of self-diagnose. So we kind of follow the automotive industry.
Yeah.
Where before you drop your car off at a mechanic and he's got to figure out what's wrong and diagnose it. Well, now you get in a brand new car, it basically tells you, here's the problem. Right. Well, they're kind of making the new equipment dummy-proof to where, like, we'll get an email and we'll know there's something wrong with that furnace or air before the customer does. So, right. And that's due to labor shortage.
I'm super blessed with this panel because, like I said, it's a panel of people who are really growing their businesses in a time period here that, you know, a lot of our investments in the ag space have failed or faltered or are on life support, so to speak. So, you know, I'm super proud that everyone and what you guys have accomplished up here. Mitch, you want to tell us? I know Mitch and at Meristem and Bryan here with Organics have seen some great growth this last year, particularly being able to provide some alternatives on the input side. Mitch, how have you guys gone about? You know, really, I know you, like I said, you and Rob sat in my living room when you had just a great plan, and you know, I tip my hat to the way that you both just executed and were able to execute on your plan, and you know, you guys just grinded through COVID, and you know, every time I'd talk to them, I mean, they'd be out on the road. I mean, every day. It was a great example for my son and my family to watch how both Mitch and Bryan and have just outworked and, you know, just tip my hat every day, new meetings, and to going out and shaking hands and had a great approach. So how did you carry that and be able to execute like you guys have executed in this space?
Well, I think if there's one word, it'd just be focus. We know what space we're focused on. We don't sell seed, we don't sell chemicals, we don't sell fertilizer. We sell high-value crop input additives. And we don't work through the traditional retail channel. So really that's been it. I mean, our pricing advantage comes from the fact that we skip over distribution in the supply chain. The way that we get our 30-point price advantage in products isn't that we can make them any cheaper than our competition. It's just we don't use the channel to go to market. We go to market with local entrepreneurs. We've got a corporate staff of under 10 people. So the farmer really drives our marketing strategy. I mean, we work in micro markets, and what we're doing in southern Illinois is going to be totally different than we're doing in northern North Dakota. We don't take a one-size-fits-all approach. We're very targeted. We've tried to become students in the biological industry. That's where our growth come from, is out of biologicals, and we've stayed very focused on that. And we just haven't deviated from our original plan.
How many new hires have you guys added in the last couple of years?
Well, we're up to 64 full-time employees right now.
Wow, great.
I don't know how many of them has come. in
Yeah,
the last
no,
2
I
years.
hear you. No, yeah.
I can tell you one thing. 5 years ago, we had one employee.
Right. Well, I remember you guys were doing the package delivering. I mean, you had everything. It was definitely nuts there for a while, for sure. So, is logistics been an issue, or is that?
We've kind of worked through that.
Have you? Yeah.
I mean, that's another example. We don't do anything that's standard as far as how products go to market. So when the transportation crisis was really in full swing and it was tough to find trucks, and hell, it cost more to ship the product than it did to make it, we started thinking, well, how do we use our farmers' infrastructure and the dealers' infrastructure and utilize their assets versus us paying LTL carriers? And today, over 60% of our product is picked up by customers at our warehouses, and we pay our customers the same amount of freight, plus a little more than we would pay an LTL driver. So we've taken the farmers' fleet, if you will, and we've utilized their assets. So you come pick up a trailer load of product at one of our warehouses, you pay for the product, but then you get a check in the mail for $6,000 for freight. The beauty behind that is the product delivery is always accurate because the farmer's there picking it up, so the wrong stuff don't get put on the truck, and that truck's never late. And it doesn't run over the dog when you pull onto the lot. It doesn't back into your equipment. It's worked out really, really well.
A lot of common sense and execution. That's what I tell Jordan. I said, pay attention to Mitch and Rob. And like I said, I just tip my hat to how they've mapped it out and how they've exceeded their marks and really their word and came through on everything on their end that they've said they were going to do. So great job, Mitch, on your guys.
I think a lot of it was just hard work. I'm often disappointed in the industry that nobody wants to go to the farm and get real. And that's what we do. We don't push it off on the channel. We don't say it was somebody else's fault. We come to the farm, we become a part of your operation, and we'll work for you 7 days a week. That's been the real differentiating factor.
Yeah, I agree. I would concur for sure. So, yeah. Bryan, you guys have seen similar kind of hyper growth on the organic side, and it's a similar story. A lot of hard work, and I know lots of hours on the road and getting out and actually meeting people and getting in the fields like Mitch and guys. And what have you seen? Some of your, what's helped you guys really push this last year?
Well, I think some of the stuff you were saying yesterday really resonated with me, and I think we've kind of mimicked a lot of your ideas, and for us it's really engaging like you guys have with the farmer. Like we want to get on the farm. We've chosen to take some technology and bundle it. You talked about getting that moat and trying to put a differentiation, and for us that's education. What I find is most farmers really don't know what's happening in their soil. And so we've invested in, we've got 5 times the sales force out this year than we did last year, and they're educated to go spend time on the farm saying this is what's actually happening in your soil. And then we've equipped them with the technology to actually go real time onto your farm, measure your soil, and tell you what you got. So being able to actually say, we're gonna go on a journey to rebuild your soil. We're gonna give you a profitable way to get into regen farming, to bring life back to your soil, which we all wanna have better land 10 years from today than we have today, and there's a path to do that, but you need to go, get people comfortable, because unfortunately, and Maristan will know this, there's a lot of noise in the marketplace in terms of a lot of people talking to you guys about microbials and biologics, and there's not a lot of follow through. And so for us to be able to say, we want you to try our product, but we also want to show you that it actually does something. Let's measure it, and let's monitor it, and let's help you show that your soil's getting better. And we just had an unbelievable customer support. So if anything, again, over 90% of the people that try our product come back the next year and buy twice as much. And that's because during the growing season, we're on their farm showing them the benefit. We're helping them educate what's happening in their soil. We're measuring it, and they become advocates, and they tell their friends. And so, yeah, we're kind of in the same way in the micro markets where we get a foothold, we explode. And so, yeah, we had our breakout year, as I think Barrett has said, this year. Yeah. It's been absolutely crazy, and 2024 looks to be significantly bigger than 2023.
No, I agree. Like I said, I don't think it's a question anymore on the science side. I believe the soil health is going to be imperative to lowering the CI scores. I think, there's some folks in the audience who've been lowering their CI scores and getting some very healthy premiums. There's people talking plus 50 cent, plus 90 cent premiums on their corn on getting the CI scored lowered. So there's not a question for Mitch or Bryan. I think it's a matter of who you want to do business with and who you're going to, kind of dig in with and grow. And like I said, both of them, I tip my hats. They both really, really work hard in the space, and I think they've done a phenomenal job considering what the landscape was in the last couple of years. So great job on both fronts. So I'm excited to see where both go. Let's just switch gears a little bit to Johnny Hunter with Castor River Farms and Debbie Borg that, go direct, or trying to go direct, I should say, in their own capacities. Johnny going direct with the rice on the shelves, and Debbie's story, and she'll tell you a story. Her and her daughter grow chickens for Costco. They're one of Costco's main chicken producers, but we'll get into that. Johnny, tell us a little bit what have been some of your trials and tribulations this year as you try to buy shelf space and get in more stores and expand and grow the going direct. And I think the going direct, like the farm daughters that passed out the pasta and Paul's daughters, and I just know how hard you guys work to go direct from the farm to the consumer, and I think it's awesome. I would love to be in that space myself. I just know the curve is just a bear to go. So tell us a little about what you're experiencing.
Yeah, so, John Wayne said it best. He said, life's hard, but it's harder when you're stupid. I don't think I'm stupid, but when we decided to go, to go direct, that was a decision we made in 2017, and in 2018 we executed on that. Now, we weren't stupid, but we were certainly, without a shadow of a doubt, extremely ignorant to this whole new industry that we were moving into, which is, food, manufacturing, grocery retail. And the amount of ignorance that I had back then, I look back and, it's just, I'm astounded that I'm even alive, that I'm even here. I really am, because we learned so much the hard way, which is the story of my life. It's just learning it the hard way. It's the amount of mistakes we've made has been monumental. If I had it all to do over again, I could probably cut my time in half and spend half as much money. But again, that's where we're at. But you would think too, it was really weird to me, because you hear all the noise in the world about sustainable farming, and we need a regenerative supply of food. We need these things, and we all need to know our farmer. We all want to, we need to get these farm products to market and support the American farmer. And then when you go do that thing and you get 1,000 doors slammed in your face, it makes you wonder, like, okay, is everybody just bullshitting me? But, you know, I thought this was what you wanted. And it is, to a degree. But make no mistake about it, there is nothing about grocery retail or food service that has been designed for the family farm. Nothing. It's a world they almost don't want you in. And so what we've done right, if we've done anything right, is we've built a team at Castor River, both internally and across the country, of people who have decades and decades of experience in this industry and understand the way of the world.
How hard is it to get shelf space, Johnny? I mean, what do you got to do?
How hard is it to what?
Get shelf space for your product.
It just depends on what shelf you're talking about. I could leave this hotel right now and probably walk down the street and find a little independently owned grocery store and go in and have a conversation. And by the end of that conversation, I could probably have a spot on their shelf. But, you know, what's that really going to do? Because, okay, I got a spot on the shelf. How does the product get to the shelf? Well, am I going to be driving to Kansas City every week? Coincidentally enough, that's how I launched the brand.
I remember that. I remember you coming to Kansas City and other small towns and getting in the grocery store.
It's what I did. I drove to Kansas City.
You'd be cooking rice on aisle 7, I remember.
Yeah. It was it was interesting. We found out, this is how intelligent Johnny Hunter is. You know, we launched a brand, we built a mill, we had packaging, marketing. You know, we spent a fortune, and we didn't have a go-to-market strategy. Nothing. I really did. I assumed, hey, I'm going to get nice packaging, have a nice product. You know, I'm a third-generation farmer, you know, good old boy from down in the Boot Hill. Hell, I thought the phone was going to be ringing off the hook, and it didn't. And that really blew me away. Kind of hurt my feelings. And so after, 6 months of having my feelings hurt, I said, well, we got to do something. And so I, started selling rice door to door. And because what you'll learn in this industry, in anybody that's done it will tell you, there's so much chicken or the egg in the food space. And what I mean by that is, it takes distribution to get the product to market. So there's a few ways you can do that. You can work with a distributor, you can distribute it yourself, and that's really about it. But you'll go to the distributor and you'll say, hey, I've got this great product. It's different, it's new, it's fresh, it's sustainable. It's got a story wrapped around it, and they'll put their arm around you and say, man, this is great, John. We love this. How many stores are you in? And you'll say, well, none. Oh, well, come back when you've got, a couple hundred stores. And they're like, okay, yeah, I can do that. That's no problem. I got my marching orders. And so I go out to the stores, and I say, hey, look what I got here. This is great. This is what you want. They're like, oh, this is the best. Who's your distributor? And you're like, well, that's why I'm here. They're like, oh, well, if you're not carried by KE or UNFI, we can't talk to you. And so you bang your head against the wall with that chicken or the egg. And then we ultimately just started, I don't want to say we lied to people, but we exaggerated reality. And I mean really exaggerated reality. But, I had to do something.
Yeah, I remember you'd call me and say you'd be in New York or you'd be at the big food show in Chicago or, and I'm like, oh, shit, here's Johnny down here. If you guys get a chance, ask Travis his stories when he was trying to get Tractor Soda into, like, Chipotle. And Travis is a good country boy, and he was in New York, and the buyer for Chipotle, the main buyer, oh my gosh, I mean, completely different culture, completely different person. And Travis is like, holy smokes, it's crazy what you got to go through and the people you got to get past. So, Johnny, I tip my hat. You're still in the game, buddy. You're still plugging away at it, so I definitely appreciate it. Debbie, why don't you tell the crowd a little about the Borg family farms and what you guys have accomplished and how you've grown your business.
Well, I can start by saying I love John Wayne, and I might take on that quote, and I can say ditto to a lot of what you just said. We never felt dumb, but so I grew up on an acreage raising sheep in 4-H and married into a fifth-generation farming operation in northeast Nebraska, where my husband loved feeding cattle, and we raised corn and soybeans, wheat occasionally, and alfalfa, and had some really good friends that went to work for Lincoln Premium Poultry, which is an offset of Costco in Nebraska. And I think everybody probably knows that Costco decided to grow their own bird because they weren't getting the product they wanted for their rotisserie chickens, which everybody's they're famous for. So anyway, LPP hired a couple people in Nebraska to go recruit farmers, and they happened to be some very good friends of ours. So we knew all about the project. We went to some of the hearings. And one day my husband said to me, "Do you think we ought to do this?" And I looked at him and I said, "Are you feeling okay?" He's a cattle guy. And he said, "Well, it's an amazing opportunity, I think, and a way to help the next generation come back." And I'm like, "Well, okay." We're on the tail end of when LPP is trying to get their contract signed, and so I stopped by, and this makes me sound not very businesslike, but I said to my friends, I'm like, "Okay, we want the highest profit opportunity, least amount of labor. Which one is that?" They're like, "Pullet grower." And I said, "Well, what's a pullet grower do?" I didn't know what a pullet was. So anyway, we signed the contract, and away we went. This was in 18, early winter, I think. And so then our daughter, we have 3 children, and our daughter was home in the spring of 18, and her dad said to her, "I've got a job for you when you graduate if you want to come back." And she said, "Yep, sign me up." And then she said, "What am I going to do?" And he said, "You're going to be a chicken farmer." And she's like, "Okay." So anyway, that was in 18. May of 19 is when we got our first chickens. So they dropped off 65,000 day-old birds. And my daughter and I had never been in a chicken barn. And they said they were going to hold our hand until we figured it out, and we'd be tired of them holding our hand. And we're like, okay. Now we have brand new barns, brand new equipment, state-of-the-art facility, and they told us these were some of the biggest barns ever built in the industry. And I can tell you, they dropped these birds off. The service people were working on how to run the feed. It took them 25 minutes to figure it out. And he turned around and he said, "Can you do this tomorrow?" And I said, "No." I mean, they couldn't tell me how to do it. They were just punching buttons and finally got it to work and then said, "Well, you can do this tomorrow." And I'm like, "No, I can't." So it was way harder than I ever dreamt. We didn't know what we didn't know. And the good thing is I love to ask questions. But when you build a new barn, you have this expectation that equipment is going to run. So when we feed our birds, there are about 100 motors that are supposed to run. And my daughter and I were not electrically knowledgeable or mechanical. And I can tell you that she is way more mechanical than I am now. And electricity, we're a lot smarter. But I will say that first year, particularly the first 6 months, so we get the day-old birds, we keep them for about 5 months, and then they ship from our place to a breeder barn where they start laying eggs, so we have them for 22 weeks. We thought that if you had a new barn, equipment should run properly. And I will tell you that first flock, not one time did all the motors run every day like they were supposed to. Every day there was something new. You had to, hit this one with a golf club because I was too short. But we figured it out. And my statement, the first flock was, well, I am upright and breathing today, so it's a good day. We're in northeast Nebraska, and when they built these barns, they want you, there's a backup for a backup. So one well will run this operation very easily, but we have to have 2 wells, and our wells are 750 feet deep. And we have a generator, we have 2 generators, and then the brains of the barn is called the ROTM, which I can run the barn from my phone, and there's a backup to the mastermind ROTM, and then there's also another backup. So it's very overwhelming from the start, and now it's like, wow, this is so easy. And we don't get near as worked up when something doesn't go right because we've figured it out. And if you ask my daughter, she would say, we found a rhythm now, and it's going pretty good. But it was way harder than we ever dreamt, but we didn't know what we didn't know. But it accomplished what we wanted. We were able to bring back the next generation. And the other benefit of chickens is the manure. And that was one of the other reasons we wanted to raise chickens, is so that we had access to manure on a regular basis.
Yeah, perfect. The first time I met Debbie, she said, yeah, we've got about 60,000 chickens and 65 roosters. And
There's about 55,000 hens and 7,800 roosters.
okay, 70. And I said, wow, what the hell? You raised chickens a long time. Did you know a lot when you did it as a kid? And she's like, no, didn't know a thing about it. My husband and I just got us into it, just started on a wing. And so I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, I think it's great, though. Like I said, everyone, and like we talked about yesterday, life's about making choices and decisions, and you do them fast and jump in, and, there's only so many data points you can look at, and it seems like the people on stage may only needed a few data points to jump in the water and learn how to swim. So like I said, it's very amazing stories and some great things. Jordan, I was going to ask you, I know you get a chance to see tons of ag businesses. So everyone from working with Cargill and ADM down to CGB, down to our ag tech startups. So it's interesting. I get good intel back from Jordan on ag tech startups, or what's going on in a lot of our ag investments or comparisons to other companies or businesses. What do you see as differences, in the ag businesses you work with, from the ones we see that are successful, to the ones we see that maybe struggle?
Yeah, I'm extremely fortunate to this short time with AgSwag. I've worked with companies like you said, Cargill, doing a ton with precision planting now. We work a ton with Dairy Farmers of America, all the way down to the small startups, 1-2 people. They just started it in their basement. But I think the biggest difference that I've seen is a lot of people, like, you can really tell the difference between Cargill and a small startup, where Cargill knows their mission, like, top to bottom, and the startup just has no idea what they're doing. They're kind of just winging it. For example, like, I'll talk to Cargill on the phone, and I'll be like, we'll be going through a plan on marketing to their clients. We got a big customer appreciation coming up, and I'll be like, all right, so what's your customer acquisition rate? What are we looking to spend? What's your customer retention? Who are the customers? Like, who's going to be in the room? They know the answer. Like, anything I throw at them, they know the answer. They have a plan top to bottom. They have the data. I mean, you go to a startup, I'm talking to 6 different people in a month, and there's no plan.
That's not all startups now.
Not all startups.
They didn't like that when you talked to Mitch, or I know when you talked to
No, yeah, for sure. And I guess that goes into my next point. The culture isn't right, I think, is one of the main reasons they don't have a plan. 2 examples. Like you said, We knew Mitch and Rob when they started it. We knew it was Barrett, Katie, and Dave Stark when they started Organics. You look back at Meristem, I look back now, and it definitely wasn't luck. It wasn't an accident that they went from 1 to 65 employees in 4 years. I mean, looking back now, they had a plan. They knew their culture. They knew exactly what they were doing. I called my dad last night with Organics, and I was like, hey, like, I think we're getting some momentum behind this thing. Like, it was the first time I sat in the room with Organics, and the staff was excited to be there. The clients were excited to be there. The staff was excited to have their swag on. The clients were trying to get the swag. They were excited, and the team really, company, owner, Barrett all the way down to the guy they were trying to bring on board. They were working towards the same mission and the same goal. Like, they were a good group of guys, and I feel like they're really building a culture on that side of the business, and I think that's one of the main reasons they're actually starting to take this company to scale and gain some traction. And the third point I would want to make is the chain of command seems to be broken in, not all, but some companies I work with. For example, a lot of people in the swag space don't get a chance to talk to the CEO of a company, a big company. I do get that chance, I think, because a lot of the connections we have in the space, but you'll ask them what the plan is on the marketing level, and then you actually get down to the troops and what they're doing. I mean, the plan is not executed at all. They don't know. They got their own plan. For example, like, you'll go to a company, you talk to the CEO, they got a plan on the marketing, and then you get all the way down to when they're actually ordering the swag, and the plan is, I need to get as much swag as possible for the cheapest amount of cost. And like, that's not what I just heard going back up the food chain. So I think those are probably the three biggest issues I see and differences I see from a company that is really getting after it, making money, and a company that may be struggling.
Yeah, I would agree. We talk all the time, Jordan and I, about it, and he's just amazed as how, when you talk to the higher level person, maybe their goal is customer retention. Maybe they're having a problem. Like I always told you, Sprint, I did Sprint CEO for, we were friends for a while, and the biggest problem with Sprint is they could get people in the front door. They couldn't keep them from going out the back door faster than they came in the front. So their customer retention rate was horrible. So they were always trying to figure out how can we improve our customer retention. So you have to ask yourself with whatever you're doing, whether it's swag or whatever, am I buying this hat? Is it to lower my customer acquisition cost? Like, is this going to help me lower my cost and reduce my sales cycle on my customer acquisition? Or am I doing this for customer retention? Or am I doing this like maybe you want to buy things for your investors. I've seen this, like, people that have put up substantial money or some of your biggest investors in your company, and they want to do something special. And then Jordan gets on the phone with whoever's actually doing the ordering, and maybe they say the budget's 20 grand, 10 grand. Well, that person, then they want to order, $10,000 of squeezy balls and pens, and it's like, yeah, that's probably not going to excite your investor who would just put up $1 million. So it's like, I just think we see that, though, in a lot of companies, and you're like, how can the messaging go from the CEO or the board or the executive team, and then when it gets to the front line, it's just completely lost. And it's the little things that matter, right? You think about it. It's the little things that matter. And you don't see that from the disconnect or that dislocation in the companies that are really making it. Too many times I've invested in companies early, and I'm not kidding you. I think all they care about is getting to the next round and raising more money for the next round, and then another raise to the next round. And we'll talk to 8 or 9 different people within a year. Yes, my wife. there'll be people there's tons of people, companies that come to Farmcon or have come before. She'll talk to 9 or 10 different people in that year that will ask her the same question, the same thing. It's just that different employees come, gone, moved, they moved them around, did this, did that. It's just so crazy. And, and I think just to try and show growth or to try and show market share growth so they can get to the next round of raises and raise more money. And unfortunately, when it gets to the end of the line, not a lot has happened. They played the shell game, and it looks like a lot's happened, but it hasn't. And that's why I say the folks on the stage have executed and become profitable and are making money actually, and hiring people and building, and it's in place. And that chain of command I think is critical. Mitch, how have you working your chain? You came from Winfield, you came from big corporate. How are you able to keep your guys' chain of command? I know your frontline people. They're good. They know, they're right in line with you guys. They're step in step with you and Rob. And how do you do that, consistently, I guess?
Well, I think it's remaining consistent and supporting your culture.
I don't think they can hear you yet, man.
I think you got to be consistent, and you got to respect your culture. We hire local entrepreneurs. We're not a top-down driven organization. So if you want to come to work for us and you want us to tell you what to do Monday through Friday, you're in the wrong place. We don't have a corporate infrastructure to do command and control. We have leadership. Everybody clearly understands our objective. We're excited about what we do. We expect to win. When we go on a farm, everybody has the same attitude. How can we help this farmer make more money and do more with less? And we never deviate from that. And if you don't fit in our culture, it's interesting. This probably don't sound good, but new hires are given 120 days at Maristem.
Okay.
So when you come in, you got 120 days to add value to farmers. And if you don't add value to farmers in 120 days and show a trajectory of helping farmers win, you don't make it through the 120 days. That's resulted in a really hyper performance. The folks that are here believe in what they do. It's not about making a sell. It's not about making the next dollar. It's about helping farmers win. And we never deviate from that. We do some pretty irrational things to support our customers, but that's our culture. Our money isn't controlled by me. Our go-to-market's not controlled by me. We have 34 local entrepreneurs across the market today, and they all run their own individual businesses with their own P&Ls. So visibility's there, transparency's there, whining's not allowed, and we don't believe in excuses. You expect to win, and you deliver value to your customer. And you remain humble, and you're a servant every day. I am a servant to the people in this room, period. So we wake up every day with a real desire to add value to farms and to help people win. If you can't get in line with that culture, you're out in 120 days.
Perfect. That's what I'm telling you. I remember, like I said, when they sat in my living room, they explained the business plan. It made sense. I understood it. It was quick, easy. They had it thought out and simplified. It takes a lot to simplify an idea. I know that sounds crazy, but it takes a lot. And if you gleaned one thing out of it right out of the gates, his messaging was dead on from the first day I heard him, and he probably won't even remember that. He wants to help a farmer do more with less. It's simple. I want to help the farmer do more with less. Okay, now Jordan, I will always call Jordan because I send him in first because people need swag. These startups need swag. And I'll say, well, what was the message? I love two guys in a truck. I know what the hell they do. They move stuff. I know Subway sandwiches. It's easy to understand. I'll say, Jordan, how was it? he'll be in a meeting 2 hours with, say, some new company. Tell me, what are the differences you see?
Yeah, I mean, it just comes down to, like you said, over-complicating the marketing, over-complicating the message. I'll sit in meetings 2 hours long, 3 hours long, come out and be like, what the hell just happened? I still don't even know what these guys do. And I think that's the biggest issue with a lot of companies we see coming into the ag tech space that might not be gaining traction. And they continue to not gain traction and continue to pivot to the next idea, to where they eventually find their place as a low-cost provider. And I mean, that's a whole different beast in a game. An ag tech startup's not going to win. I mean, what they need to be doing, in my opinion, is focusing on ways to simplify the message, capturing premium, and continuing to add value. I mean, adding value isn't just being the cheapest guy in town, and we've really seen that in AgSwag.
But don't you think they pivot there because they go out, their plan is super overcomplicated, where, like I said, I sat in a board meeting, I remember one time, and I've even heard stories. I think Rex Tillerson, one of the ones at Exxon, he'd make people dumb it down. They'd come in, bring in the engineers, and they would crazy, elaborate, complicated. He's like, dumb it down to a third grade level. I'm not sitting here as CEO because of my brains. It's because I can execute fast and make fast decisions. And, Jordan would get out of these and we would say, like I said, we didn't even understand or know exactly what they were doing. They would go out, and I feel like they get punched in the teeth and get told no many times, and then they pivot to where? Low-cost provider. Because as you know, I mean, if you're a low-cost provider, you're going to get some yeses. But I don't know if that gets you anywhere. You know what I'm saying? I think your profitability probably falls off from where you thought it might be, or where you had projected in our initial meetings of investing, and then they just then drift down into that low-cost provider space, and then it's just how long can they hold their breath, and then they pretty much go and die. So, Mitch, you got something to say on that?
Well, I couldn't agree more. You're exactly right. If you're going to be the low-cost provider, you better be low-cost, period. If you think you're going to go out and disrupt a price point in the industry and gain competitive advantage with price, and you don't think somebody with a lower cost can't respond, you better wake up. So if you're ever going to lead with price, you better be the low-cost provider, or you cannot win that game. If you want to compete with one of the big 3 seed companies, and you're licensing genetics and traits off them, and you think you're going to go out and win the price war against those guys, let me tell you something. You're not going to. So if you're going to be low cost, you better be low cost.
Yeah, I agree. Jordan, you want to finish up, or?
Yeah, I'll ask Mitch, I know you guys do have low costs, but what other ways are you guys adding value to the farmer?
Well, we got into the business with a disruptive message that was anchored a lot in cost. And when we started the company, we were adjuvants and foliars that we simply went and private labeled the products you were already using, and then instead of taking them through the traditional distribution channel and seeing literally 50% of what you paid for the price of the product go back into the channel as commission, we thought, well, there's a better way. Let's go get to know these folks. Let's explain what these products do. Let's be true to our mission, and let's see if we can carve some space out, not going direct, but going through a modified channel approach that nobody else in the industry uses. And that modified channel approach allowed us to garner about a 30-point price advantage because we went to market with 30 points less cost. If you don't pay 3 people in the channel to get to the farmer, you can achieve a 30% cost reduction. But we never got there because we could make the products at a lower cost than anybody else. We just really went to the farm and didn't pay everybody else. I mean, when we kicked this business off, there's 4,000 farmers in the U.S. that farm more than 2,500 acres of corn. 4,000. You don't need an internet site to do business with 4,000 farmers. If you want to do business with 4,000 farmers, go meet 4,000 farmers, find out about their operation, understand what you can do to add value to their business, and help them win. Don't make the transaction based off an internet exchange. Go meet those 4,000 people. And once you get your lens on what your target is, it's a very narrow focus that you go after. We said we're going to go out and we're going to meet 4,000 farmers, and we're going to work harder for those 4,000 farmers than any supplier in the industry. And when we do that, we'll see if we can get some business. Well, that approach has worked, but the alternative channel approach got us started. 85% of what we sell today isn't adjuvants and foliars. It's unique biological products, some of which enjoy patent protection. Given the size of the biological market, people say, are you the price leader? Well, how can you be the price leader of an industry that doesn't exist? The adoption of biologicals is so low that you cannot go out and pick a market leader and try and disrupt them like you could a foliar micronutrient. You got to build the category from the ground up. So to say that you command a price advantage in a category that doesn't exist, that's delusional. So I don't view us as a price leader in biologicals. We really don't know. I think, Dennis, you said it best. It's a very fragmented industry. There's not a clear market leader. So to go out and say you're a price leader in biologicals really don't mean much. Biologicals, I see them anywhere from $2 to $30 an acre out there. So it's a very fragmented market. We don't lead with price. Our go-to-market strategy and the way that we get products to the market allow us to spend less money on the channel, and then we take those savings and we give them back to the farmer versus the distribution channel. But with biologicals, that's 85% of our margin structure today, and we haven't had a competitor to try and price against.
Yeah.
It's been all new space.
New
So
space, right.
it's hard to disrupt a category that doesn't have a price point.
I agree. And that's what I'm trying to say is, so when you see these come here that you invest and they gravitate to that low-cost provider, I almost feel like I said it's a death march to some degree. If you take organics from 2007, when they first started coming in 2017, the price is doubled. You hear what I'm saying? The price to the farmer is double what it was then. We've added IP, we've added technology, we've added a lot of things through the channel, but it hasn't doubled because it doesn't work. It hasn't doubled in price because it's doubled in price because hell, the demand's gone higher. It's just like when I started out speaking, I think I did the first one for like $1,000. So I don't even know. I think I lost money on the deal, traveled Clear Pride to North Dakota or something, endured 0-degree temps, and I hate speaking in public. It's just like my kryptonite. I swear, I get super nervous, crazy. I've told a lot of you that before. So I said, hell, I'm just going to keep raising the price to where I don't have to do this. I don't want to feel, and I think we got it. I think now I've had some people pay me $50,000 for 45 minutes and 15 in questions. I'm like, I'll endure the nerves. I'll do it. I'll endure it. But it's just because of supply and demand. That's what I said. We've been able to double the price, and I see Mitch and them having success as well. So, Bryan, you've seen that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the critical thing for us is, we need to be profitable, right? That's sustainable, and that's the thing we want for farmers. Like, if we can help you grow your profit by reducing the amount of costs that you have to raise a crop, and we can improve the quality of that crop, that's a win for you. At the same time, you need us to be here next year. So that was part of that. But at the same time, when we were able to position the product at a competitive price based on how we could add value, we also said we want to do more than just deliver a product. So we're going to bring the technology, we're going to help you engineer your soil regeneration, and we're going to measure it and put people on the street who can actually help you. And so we've done the same thing from a distribution channel. Like, we don't have anybody between the manufacturer, who's us, and the end is through people that are part of the family. And so we don't go through conventional channels, and that affords us to bring that value to the farmer versus giving 50% to somebody in the middle that honestly won't do the hard work. You know, for us, it's education and in-field work that really make an informed farmer capable of navigating this space of microbials and soil health. And you hand this off to Nutrient or somebody else, they're not going to do that work. So for us, the pricing, I think, we wanted to know was a value, but we wanted to deliver more than a product for that value.
Yeah, and I think that's what the company needs, that's what companies in ag need to be focused on, like Mitch said, and Brian. And, you know, Chris, we'll run it a little late, but Chris and Debbie and Johnny, you know, add some closing thoughts. We'll start with Chris. And,
Yeah,
you know,
I'll tap in on Chris too. I mean, maybe we can start with this question, but everyone on stage, I can tell, none of us got it figured out. I mean, like Chris said, we're all building a business, but we're going to continue to innovate and make things happen. And maybe, Chris, you can talk about what you guys got going on, innovation-wise, what you're doing with your insurance side of things.
Yeah. So, big thing for me in the entrepreneurial journey, I wake up every day and I know it's always forward, never straight. And a wise man once told me, if you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're going to be successful, please spend the majority of your time building mountains, not filling in the valleys. And with that mission, every single day, it is the innovation. It's how do you provide value? You know, we're not selling hard goods, you know, chemicals or, you know, soil testing or anything like that. We're transactional based, and we're trying to build products that help the growers. Or, you know, on the insurance side of things, that's been the biggest feather in our cap this last year, is spending 14 months with one of the largest AIPs, Hudson Crop. You know, I went to them literally with a dinner date with the CEO and a couple of guys that wanted to learn more about what we were doing. And within 24 hours, we laid out a plan to build a cash lease insurance protection product. It's a private product, and it took 14 months. But it's something that's probably going to revolutionize, you know, the private product industry and crop insurance. And that drives value for both the landowner and the farmer, because it provides insurance and protection and a hedge without having to, you know, market grain. It's almost replacing a put for cheaper. And it gives that peace of mind to the landowner, like, hey, you know, yeah, these rents are going up a little bit, but how do I know I'm going to get paid? And the landowner can purchase the insurance. So it all goes back to waking up every day and saying, what am I doing? How can I do things better? How do I listen? And if I could just, you know, give any piece of advice, it's listening. You know, Brad and I were at dinner last night with two guys that were a hell of a lot smarter than us and had bloodied their shins a lot more than us. And you sit and you stay humble and you listen. But I think that's the biggest thing, is just constantly being agile, nimble, willing to innovate, willing to do stuff different. And with each year, you know, always forward, never straight, you turn over a different stone through that listening process to say, oh my gosh, this person's got a pain point. Can I solve that problem? And that's how I started my business, is right. I was faced with a problem. I couldn't find a farmer, and I was like, this is crazy. And it's been a 6-year journey, but it's fun. You're building the mountain. You're not filling in a valley. And as long as you can wake up every day with that attitude, I think you're going to be successful in the long run.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. Debbie?
Well, Kevin, you made a lot of comments yesterday that really hit home about the legacy and why farmers are sometimes slow to jump because we've got so much at stake. And I will tell you, you know, not growing up on the family farm we're on, I would tell people that every day my husband wakes up and says, what do I need to do to make this farm sustainable so the next generation can come back? We never forced our kids to come back or said, you have to come back. We wanted them to go try something if they wanted to. And I used to say our crops were corn, soybeans, cattle, and kids, kids being the most important. They're not kids anymore, they're adults, and we do have 2 home, and the third one really wants to be back, and we're trying to figure it out. And, you know, it's a whole lot of work bringing the next generation back, but man, what a reward. And, you know, I think every farmer in here wants to grow and make sure we're sustainable and allow that next generation back. And I will say it's really, really hard, but the most rewarding thing we've ever done. It's also the hardest thing. You know, I say raising kids was really hard. Expanding into chickens was even harder. Bringing the next generation is even harder. But man, the rewards just keep getting bigger. And you just have to keep trying. And, you know, every day, what are we doing to make sure that we're sustainable? And it is hard, but man, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I for sure. So, Johnny?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I got out of Farmcon, really just from you, Kevin, this kind of goes back to, you know, price and what Mitch was saying. The thing Kevin taught me probably 5 years ago that I continue to go back, and I draw this in my conference room probably 2 or 3 times a year, but, you know, Kevin taught me that business is like a river. On one end of the river is really high margins and really low volume. So it's like selling Ferraris. Ferrari's going to sell 200 cars a year. Their margins are incredible, but their volume is incredibly low. On the other end of the river is Ford making a Ford Taurus. I don't even know if they make Ford Tauruses anymore, but I've always used Ford Taurus. You know, it's on the other end. And you have to understand that when you get into, you know, a business, I think as producers, we exist down on the Ford Taurus line, right? We're producing a commodity. The definition of a commodity is something that anybody can do. And so my goal for Castor River was I want to get on the other end of the river. I want to get up there where the margin is. And Kevin taught me that you have to understand where you're at in the river and understand that the river is always going to try to carry you back down to low margin, high volume. And we have had to say no to more relationships than we've said yes to. Probably 80% of the opportunity that comes through my door, our deal flow pipeline, 80% doesn't make sense because it pushes us too far down the river. And so you have to have a lot of fortitude to say no to business. I'm a deal guy. Jordan's a deal guy. Kevin's a deal. I think there's a lot of deal guys and gals in this room. So I always want to do a deal. It's a drug. Let's do a deal. Let's do a deal. Let's sell something. Let's make something happen. But I've had to have the fortitude to say no to so much. And if you're going to create value, that's great. Create value, know the value, and get rewarded for the value.
I think that's great, John. That's a great way to sum it up. I'm excited. We're going to stay in our seats. We got our next speaker coming up, Eric Uberman. The reason I bring in someone that we wouldn't traditionally see at these events is to get outside our comfort zone and learn. He's built one of the top marketing companies, has a New York Times best-selling book, created a big buzz around marketing your brand and your family farm, you know, things that we can use and actually utilize. And everyone's going to be here the rest of today. And so ask these folks questions about their trials and tribulations. And I'm going to welcome Eric to the stage, and we're going to get this next round started. We'll have a break right after Eric's done. Thank you.